Hi everyone, Emma McAdam here. I'm a licensed therapist, and today we're going to talk about what to do when the news is anxiety provoking. So I'm sure there are a lot of people out there talking about coping skills, but if you know me, then you know that in this video, I'm going to talk about how your brain responds to threats and how you can be more intentional about taking back your sense of calm. So some of you may have heard that there's this thing out there called the coronavirus, and it's kind of a big deal. People have been talking about it for a few months, but just this week it started to get real for most of us in the United States. We've got things like school closures and travel bans and some really big drops in the stock market, not to mention the worry of actually getting sick. So this is really affecting all of us, and I think it's really unprecedented. For example, the church I belong to, it's canceling services worldwide, and this has never happened before. So with all of this going on, I'm certainly feeling a bit of anxiety and concern, and I'll assume that most people out there are. Especially if you happen to run out of toilet paper this week and you can't find any at the store. I think a lot of us in the US here are wishing we had a bidet right now. And all the men are gonna have to learn how to use one of these little bum squirty bottles. All you moms who've given birth, you know what I'm talking about. So anyways, what we're gonna talk about today is how your brain responds to threats. So your brain evolved to keep you alive. The parts of your brain that are hardwired for survival are deep and ancient, and they're really powerful. So the limbic system of your brain is wired to notice threats and to respond by kicking off this fight, flight, freeze response. When this response goes off, it triggers physical changes in your body. And this is the stress response that includes adrenaline and cortisol pumping through your body to get the muscles ready to respond to danger by fighting it off, escaping or avoiding it, or as a last resort, freezing. So the stress response is really quite functional when responding to a lot of physical threats, but our ancient brain isn't as well adapted to our modern environment. And that's partly because the fight, flight, freeze response has the same reaction in your body to actual danger, like a venomous snake, as it does to perceived danger, like things we think about or read about or hear about. And this is a great skill. It makes the human brain really powerful. It makes us able to plan for events that haven't happened to us yet. But if we don't manage it very carefully, it can also make us very, very anxious. So the news triggers this fight, flight, freeze response in our brain and our body. Because now with modern communications and the relentless news cycle, that's what's happening to each of us. Every time we read the news, it's that our limbic brain is sending a message to our body and our brain that we're in danger. And over again, each time we hear another frightening news story, that fight, flight, freeze response is triggered. And our glands pump out a little bit more adrenaline, and suddenly people are running to the stores and buying all the soap and all the toilet paper. I'm not quite sure what that has to do with it, but that's connected to this fight, flight, freeze response. Okay, so the other thing about your brain is that it is more attuned to noticing threats than it is to noticing things that are going fine. So if there's 100 things that are going well and one thing that's dangerous, your brain's gonna automatically notice the one thing that's threatening. This is a short-term survival response. So for example, if you're at a picnic and there's a rattlesnake under your picnic table, you're gonna wanna stop enjoying your hamburger and get the heck out of there. And this can keep you alive in brief moments of danger. But news organizations take advantage of this by constantly highlighting threats and by using tone and wording and visuals that trigger that fear response. Because when they do, it gets you to look. And if they can get you to look more, they can get more clicks or more views and sell more ads for more money. So if you aren't intentional, you'll just be reactive and you'll let the news organizations take advantage of your ancient brain by allowing them to constantly trigger your danger response. And this is going to make you more anxious and actually less prepared to take intelligent action to be safe. So this would be like making your brain think that there's a rattlesnake over and over throughout your day. And this is really going to mess with your life. Now, anxiety serves a function. It keeps us safe from real and present danger. But we have to constantly ask ourselves, Is how I'm seeing things accurate? Am I actually in danger? And then we have to make a careful choice about how to respond. So when I talk about this next part, you're probably going to have a strong emotional reaction. Like, you might be really resistant to what I'm going to say. So watch yourself for your reaction. But the world is actually getting safer over time, but almost no one knows it. So check out a couple articles. Here's one by Forbes. But basically, life expectancy is up, child mortality is down, global income inequality is down, more people are living in democracies, conflicts are on the decline, massive gains have been made in reducing poverty, literacy is up, more people have access to healthcare than ever in the history of the world, education continues to improve globally. All these things are going better than ever in basically the history of the world, but 9 out of 10 people think that the world is getting more dangerous and getting worse every day. So our actual perception of what's safe and what's dangerous has been twisted, and that's mostly because of news media and how we as consumers are choosing to read the stories that highlight the bad things that are happening. So what's the last story you read that said, hey, there's less war on average lately? Or less kids are dying these days? Or no one got kidnapped in our state this month? These stories don't get clicked on as much because they don't trigger that same urgency in our brain the same way that stories about the coronavirus or other tragedies do. So my local news site, it lists the top 10 clicked on stories of the day. And on their main landing page, they've got a bunch of different types of stories, educational stories and uplifting stories and the gruesome stories. And without fail, the top 3 most clicked on stories are always the most terrifying story of the day. And it's easy to blame the news media, but they publish what we consume. People just don't click on happy stories as much as they look at the sad or the scary stories. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying you should ignore the problem, but rather you should take an honest look at yourself and an honest look at your news consumption habits, and to not forget to see the things that are going well too. I'm not trying to deny that the coronavirus is a real problem, but we need to be careful and intentional about what we look at if we want to manage our anxiety. So this means choosing to run your brain instead of letting fear run you. We need to intentionally choose where we're going to put our attention. If we just let our circumstances or news media or our ancient fear-based brain or survival-based brain decide, then you're going to be constantly stressed out. So just don't let fear run the show. Don't be reactive to your emotions, and don't let other people, like news people, control your emotions. So what do we do instead? We need to use this Mindsight, which is Dan Siegel's term for insight into your own mind, to choose an intentional response to all of this scary news. Coronavirus is actually dangerous, but to respond to our anxiety in a helpful way, we need to be intentional. So, an intentional response looks like asking yourself what's within your control. And I love the serenity prayer for this. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So let's start by talking about the courage to change the things you can. When you choose intentional action, you make a choice based on your values and what's most important to you, instead of letting fear choose for you. So, for example, you can choose how much news to consume. You can let your feed decide, which will make you more anxious, or you can turn off notifications on your phone so that you choose when you want to look at it instead of letting your phone decide for you. You can choose to only read the news once a day, which is actually a lot better for your nervous system than having these tiny jolts of adrenaline all throughout the day. We're really good at responding to short-term threats, and our nervous system is not very good at responding to chronic stress, so those little bits of stress throughout the day. So I would recommend that you choose a morning and bedtime routine that's different than scrolling through your feed or watching the news. Do something else. There are better things to do right when you wake up. Read a book, exercise, do something helpful instead of just scrolling through endless posts about the coronavirus. Another thing you can choose where you get your news from. So some news sources are intentionally inflammatory and others take a more rational approach. The CDC and the World Health Organization are not trying to make money, so they'll generally be more straightforward, and your local news and Facebook will most likely be a bit more reactive styled. Another thing you can choose is to intentionally bring to mind what is going well. This is not burying your head in the sand or ignoring the reality of bad things happening, especially the bad things that we have control or influence over. But instead, this is taking an honest and healthy look at the world and your life. So this is why gratitude practice and journaling are so effective as treatments for anxiety and depression. They give you a chance to notice all the good things that are actually going on in your life, but your stressed out brain didn't notice them. And on that note, when you're stressed, it's actually a lot harder to notice the good because your brain attunes to threats. So if you keep working at this and practicing this, you can actually retrain your brain to be calmer. So to do this, go read some uplifting stories, write some long lists of gratitude, remind yourself that you're one of the few people in the entire history of the world who has access to hot, clean, running water and endless education on the internet. So that's pretty cool. Don't forget that there are good things going on in your life and in the world too. Okay, what else is in your realm of control? Taking reasonable precautions. So you've heard what these are: washing your hands, stop touching your face, all of that stuff. Life always involves some risk, but you can't avoid it all. So make your choices based on values instead of on fear. Another thing you can do is doing good in your sphere, right? Perfect love casts out fear. Spend some time playing with your kids. Look your family members in the eye and tell them how much you love them. Reach out and support the people around you. Take this time of social distancing to actually reach out and connect to others in an intentional and loving way. And, that might involve writing notes or, FaceTime instead of interacting with people in person. But still, you can use this as a time to kind of reset and look at your priorities and value the people who you really care about. Another really important thing to do to manage anxiety is to take care of yourself. So the stress response is meant to promote a physical action. So before we had cars and stuff, if you were late and this triggered a stress response, that physical jolt would help you walk faster or run to where you were going. Now, most of our stressors, whether they're news or work or a school assignment, are completely separate from a physical solution. So that stress response gets trapped in the body. So one thing you can do with that stress that's really good is do some physical activity. Go exercise, work in the yard, fix something around the house, or make something beautiful. Do some good in the world. And another thing that's a really important part of self-care is just take some time to get your stuff together, right? Organize a closet, make a budget, plan some things out, whatever it is. But that's all good self-care, is just taking these practical actions. And that's what the stress response is meant to do, to help us perform and take action that's helpful. Another thing you can do is practice healthy coping, self-care, and soothing. I've got a whole course on this, so check that out for more ideas. I'll put a link in the description. And you can also use this experience as an opportunity to learn and grow. So this whole crazy coronavirus thing is a chance to learn new skills for anxiety management, and it's a chance to connect better with others. It's also an opportunity to learn to prepare for things like this. To learn that next time, don't wait until the news gets dire to run to the store for bread and toilet paper. You can keep a backup savings for the regular emergencies that happen. It's kind of terrifying that 63% of Americans don't have $500 saved up for emergencies. We can do better than that. Now, I just spent a lot of time talking about your brain, but your soul is much bigger than your brain and its survival mechanisms. You can turn on purpose and meaning even in difficult circumstances, especially in difficult circumstances. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why can endure any how." So as you step back and look at this whole crazy experience we're going through, I want you to ask yourself the question, how can this experience make you a better human and a kinder person and more connected to the people around you? Perhaps it's a chance to reconnect with your spirituality or to practice loving kindness meditation. Don't let fear run your life or make your decisions. Take a minute right now and write down a few practical steps you can take to be the person you want to be instead of just reacting to fear. So thank you for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and take care. Real quick, I want to remind you, I've got courses on mental health topics. One of them is Mental Health Fundamentals, called Change Your Brain. Another one's How to Help, which is essential skills for helping family members and friends who have mental illness. And I've got a coping skills and self-care course. The links are in the description, so check those out.